Welcome to another episode of the Art in Session podcast, where we dive into the world of creative professionals, offering inspiration, insights, and practical tools for artists at every stage of their journey. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, our conversations are here to support your growth, connect you with the community, and help you make a real impact with your art. Let's get into it.
All right, guys, so welcome to the Deliberate Creation Station. My name is Ania Amador, and I'm the founder of Art in Session. We're a nonprofit organization that focuses on building art education and in-person events, so like festivals such as this one. We want to bring all of the artists that are here on site together to share their experience and contribute to the community, and then we want to document that professionally so that artists around the world can have access to that knowledge. So I'd like to welcome today's guest. We've got Ralph Edge. Tell us where you're from, the name of your business, and we'll start there.
I'm from around Nashville, Tennessee, Murfreesboro. My business is Geovisual Creations. I create art installations, do projection mapping. I make geodesic domes, fabrication, software, design, animation.
Ralph does a lot of different things, which is pretty cool. How we met was last year. I started bringing around the Deliberate Creation Station, and everywhere I got set up at different events, there was this guy with a dome like right next to us. It was Ralph and his team, and even though it was never planned, we went to at least 3 or 4 different events. Soul Fest, we came here, and his dome was set up right next to our install. And I thought, wow, like that space is such a great gathering spot. There's so many things we can do with a structure like this. How can I team up with Ralph and purchase a piece of his art that could become a part of our collection? So just by chance, we saw the value in having a dome as a part of our collection, and then we got to work really closely with Ralph to fabricate this dome according to our needs. And he worked with us in many ways to make sure that my team can put it together and that we can really maximize the space. So that's part of the reason I felt called to hear more about your story, Ralph, because it's such a benefit that you add to the community by not only being present at all of these places and hosting your own space for community, but then being willing to give back by working with people like me and by teaching. So can we start with how you got started making domes?
So I got into doing hammock camping. This was back 11, 12 years ago, and at festivals like Bonnaroo, you wake up in the tent's really hot, and I wanted a way to be able to hammock camp in a field at a festival. I made a couple of these like wooden tripod hammock stands that you could tarp over, and it worked pretty well. And the first weekend at Bonnaroo that I took those two, I'm walking around and I saw a geodesic dome with a few hammocks in it, like for a campsite, and I was like, well, that's what I wanted to make. That'll be able to hold more hammocks and kind of make a shelter out of it too. And so I found out what it was called, a geodesic dome, and went home and made one. I didn't know how to work with metal at all. I started doing research as soon as I got home, and I hit up a buddy that I knew how to work with metal. He has a shop. He makes all kinds of cool stuff. Still work with him on projects, but he helped me make that first one. I did the research, everything we needed, and went and bought it, and he had all the tools we needed, and we just kind of made one. So I started taking it to festivals, and eventually people, well, they were always asking me about it, but they wanted me to make them one too, and just kind of turned into a business without ever really trying to. And that's really how it got started. But going around to festivals with this little dome, I start seeing people with domes doing art installations. The Jellyfish Dome, which isn't here this year, it has been the past couple of years. They were an inspiration for me to kind of start doing bigger domes and different things with them. The Sonic Portal was another one. He does a little small dome with the gongs and the sound bath. He was another big one. But yeah, just seeing what people were doing with them, I'm like, well, I can do something cool. And I saw an art grant posted for Wakarusa Festival, and nice. Pitched it, and I got just enough money to buy the materials to make a bigger like hammock dome, kind of like what the Dome Collective guys have over there by the portal stage. It was about that size one, and then I just kept doing that and going with bigger domes and trying new things. And I grew up a computer nerd. I went to school for computer science before I started doing domes, and after I got out, I had a full-time job. Like 2.5 years into it, it kind of like burnt me out, like being there at the office every day sitting in front of a computer. Whenever I quit that job and kind of had some money saved up, I went to a few music festivals. That summer is when I made that first dome. But yeah, so I was already into computers, and a few years into doing the domes and like hammock installations, I had the idea it'd be really cool to turn a dome into a spaceship using a projectors and computers and stuff. And I started kind of researching, learning what I needed to be able to do that, and then an opportunity came by to do like an indoors one for this larger indoors art installation in Nashville, and I pitched it to them with a full budget and everything. The budget came out to like $11,000, and they were just looking for different rooms and areas and art installations to fill out their larger thing. It was kind of Meow Wolf inspired, but I pitched that to them, and it was the biggest project pitched to them for the whole thing, and they approved it. And so it kind of was like the centerpiece of that whole, it was called Otherworld Encounter in Nashville. Nothing to do with the Ohio Otherworld, just like 20 miles down the road, I think. Similar stuff, but we had a similar name and came out. It was kind of amusing. But that's when I started doing the projection domes and kind of went on from there. Otherworld ended and I started getting together a kit that I could do outdoors that would kind of repel rain a little bit with the cover and all that. And once I started taking it to festivals, it's kind of steadily grown doing the projection stuff, and I've been able to add to the whole setup as I go, getting, you know, rugs and chairs, upgrading to a bigger dome, better projectors, bigger computers, all that. It's a lot of pieces, but that's kind of how I got to where I'm at now, doing different installations.
Yeah, totally. It's been amazing to watch you grow and see how your business has evolved, and not just your business, but the craft of it. You know, you can see your passion and the fact that you're doing it yourself. Like, you've learned the ins and outs of building these domes, and then took your computer science background and were like, how can I create more of an experience? And it's like each year you add something unique to your space. So I love watching that evolve. One thing I noticed about you is you have a lot of documentation behind what you're doing. And that's helping you scale and grow because you're documenting what needs to be done differently. You have a team that you've been able to instruct. You've got videos to help people that are buying your domes execute. So just talk about the admin side of your growth and how you've documented what you're doing along the way.
There's so many pieces to doing all this, especially I have a business selling the domes as well, separate from, I just started the art installation business, Geovisual Creations, a couple of years ago. Yeah, I've got so many spreadsheets keeping track of all the different things I need to do or keep up with, or a list of my crew for different events or who's going to be able to, or tracking all my different dome designs. I've got a spreadsheet with just all the numbers and calculations for probably 25 different domes. I've only made 10 or 11 of those variations, but I've kind of designed domes of different sizes that, you know, I might need for some purpose or another. A lot of them were designed with a purpose. So tracking all that, tracking materials and stuff that I need to create things. Every new project, I've got to figure out what all I need to get to be able to do it. I've got to come up with a budget and a list of materials and a general plan of execution, juggling timelines between different events and needing to have different installations ready for them or loaded in the trailer. There's just so many different moving pieces that you could not keep up with it without documenting everything. So being able to do spreadsheets effectively is a big part of doing all this.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I think developing systems in general behind our business can help, and spreadsheets are a great way to do that. I've been working in a program called Airtable, which is really awesome, and it's the home for all of the spreadsheets essentially. So I love that you're refining your systems as well. What would you say, in terms of applying to festivals and events for people that want to get in there with their art installation, how have you been able to present yourself in a way that helps paint that picture for them of what it is that you're going to do? Maybe touch on your mock-ups or what your proposals are looking like, what kind of media you have that shows that event, what it is that you're capable of providing.
Definitely, yeah. That's something I kind of slacked on for a good while, is concentrating on getting good media pictures and videos of your installations once they've been built, having, you know, a good, at the least a really good camera, video, phone to be able to snap those, but even upgrading to something else, or bring somebody on the crew to help you that does the video part. Being able to get good video and learning how to edit it together just to present it to events, because all they're looking at is their phone screen or computer screen and what you're presenting to them to pull it off. So having the good media and then finding a ways to present it, putting together pitch decks, basically PowerPoints, you know, slides of, and they would have the different pictures of what you've got, being able to come up with good copy, how you're describing what you're doing and what the intention of it is, what you're trying to do with it, kind of having a goal in mind of what this installation is for, how it's going to bring people together or make the festival better, how are you bringing value to the festival. And so being able to put all that together and present that in just a little slideshow or a few videos helps a lot. Also, networking in person is really big in this industry, so putting something good together and talking to people that come by, as many as you can, and putting yourself out there.
All right, so we've touched on the admin stuff. You're clearly establishing your business, but let's talk about the creative. Aside from building and executing these domes and getting these domes booked, you're coming up with full programming for your space. What is that creative process like? How are you collaborating with other artists to be able to create visuals and essentially a performance each night?
Art in Session is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide professional and educational opportunities to creatives. Thanks to support from our listeners, we are able to keep this mission going. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider donating at www.artinsession.org.
You're coming up with full programming for your space. What is that creative process like? How are you collaborating with other artists to be able to create visuals and essentially a performance each night?
That can be a lot too, like keeping things going. It's a very full-time job, especially once it's dark in there and like I've got the visuals to keep up with, the sound, whatever's going on. I love bringing in other people to come do little performances, sound performances. You've sent me some people too, even at a couple of festivals. So having those where you can kind of have somebody do something and then take a break. I've got a video game I made for the Dome where you can fly it around like a spaceship with a joystick. And so I like being able to find somebody that's really into it and let them take that over for 45 minutes, coming up with schedules I do sometimes, but sometimes I kind of schedule too much for me. It's really easy to overwhelm myself because I have so much stuff going on. I've got several installations over here and I have to keep them maintained or deal with weather or make sure people aren't climbing on the one dome over there with all the signs on it. Really easy to overextend yourself. The creative part, like really that's the funnest part of it, like thinking of something cool and making it, but being able to fill all that time, spend a lot of time setting up kind of automated, it's not so much of a playlist, but like for the visuals on the Dome I'll have 5 or 6 different layers all kicking and each layer has random things that it can switch to randomly, and so it's kind of combining different elements at all times. And I collaborate with a lot of artists, painters and digital artists to get their art, and one, it gives me more stuff to put on the Dome, but I'm also able to promote them that way and they get to see their art on the Dome, like they get to be inside this giant version of it, and so it's really cool to be able to see them experience that. But it also gives me more content to show to people as well. But I do like being able to promote other artists, and then of course I do workshops in my space as well. I teach people technical skills, things like projection mapping or how to create visuals, 3D animation.
That was a really great answer, and I think the big takeaway for me was that you've got this space, it's going to have to be manned for certain hours of operation. How can we maximize that time we have to give as much as we can to the people? One of those ways is opening that space to others that want to come in and use it and practice their visuals or maybe teach a workshop or do a musical performance. So I love that you're building community, not just creating a place for you to show your craft, but helping to lift up other artists and doing that. It's really great. And I think activities are what lead to growth at music festivals. Idle time usually leads to bad decisions in this community. So just giving people something to do other than the typical, I think is really important. So I love that we're here for that. So some of these guys, anybody interested in tapping into projection mapping? Anyone already a projection mapper, just wanting to grow? So for people that are just starting out, where's the first place to go for information, and what do you suggest in terms of starter equipment?
Yeah, it can be a bit of a hump for people to get started. If you're getting into projection mapping, you need to get some kind of a projector. And what's really cool about projection mapping is if you're just playing around in your room and you can block all the outside light, get pitch black in there, you don't need an expensive projector to do very much at all. If you're in a smaller space, you might want to get a short throw projector, but you can get a really cheap one that's not very bright, because if you get it very, very dark, you don't need much to be able to do it. You can hang up a poster on your wall or a tapestry or some little statue or figurine and point the projector at it and start playing around. So projector, you need a computer, and then you need software. I recommend, I use Resolume a lot for a lot of my video mapping and video mixing. It's got a lot of utility, really. You can put different clips in, or you can use the effects in it just to generate different clips. But yeah, so besides the software, the next you need is content, which art from other artists is a great thing to kind of play around with. You can download free stuff. You can learn how to make animations. I use Blender a lot for 3D animation, and that's where you kind of set up a scene. You make objects and choose kind of what they're going to look like the materials and all that. You have lighting and you have cameras that you can move around, and you create a video file in that, and then you can pop it into Resolume with other video files or images and play around with layering them and animating different aspects of them.
What's the best way to get past that learning curve? Is it YouTube University? Is it trial and error? For those people that might not be familiar with these programs, what's the fastest, most effective way to learn?
Well, different people are going to learn kind of different ways. Some people are better at just watching a video, or some are better at just reading through a website, just instructions. Resolume, the website, has a lot of really great instructions for getting started with it. I would definitely recommend that if you're getting into Resolume, and then just kind of looking into videos on YouTube, spending a lot of time like just playing around within Resolume and learning, like get some random picture of a cat off the internet and pop it in there and start dragging effects over onto it and playing with the settings on effects and learning how to animate them, just the different pieces. And once you kind of get started in Resolume, there's a whole rabbit hole where you can learn. Like, I've been using it for 7 years now, and I'm still figuring out new cool stuff I can do with it, and haven't used at least half of the features of Resolume just because I haven't had a need. But spending some time and jumping into it, spending a little bit of time watching videos. I do find videos that are shorter or easier to take in chunks. Like, if you start getting much above 12 or 15 minutes, it's hard to keep an attention span on it. I tend to like shorter videos, and once I'm kind of learned a little bit of it, like shorter, a bit faster, where they're kind of moving more quickly. So finding good content creators for the level that you're at definitely helps a lot.
Is there a lot of collaboration in this scene? Like maybe people that already have visuals that people could practice with, or any resources for the community, like a Discord, or where are people congregating to share information about this?
Like on Reddit, different subreddits devoted to it, or Facebook group. Corey actually introduced me to one Facebook group, the Holiday Projection Mappers group on Facebook, and they've got a really good amount of knowledge for these are people that are just for Christmas, the holiday months, putting a projector out in their front yard and hitting their house and doing cool light shows. And there's a lot of really good knowledge in that group that applies to the kinds of stuff that I do. There's people building golf simulators too. There's groups for that. There's a lot of weird niches for projection mapping that you can find groups on Reddit. I'm trying to think if there is really a Discord. I'm part of a collective called Neural Studio, and they have a lot of video artists. They have a public and a private Discord, but the public one has a decent amount of stuff on it going through, like different people in chat that you could ask questions. Like finding chats like that of people like Discord helps a lot, because you can just ask a question and get an answer in real time sometimes, depending on who's around.
Totally. What a good reminder that there's these specialized interest groups on all social media platforms, essentially, that you can tap into and like ask questions, and kind of, you don't even have to ask the question. You can use the search tool and probably find exactly what you're looking for. I love Reddit for a good information share. So such a good reminder. Do you recommend reaching out to like your favorite artists that are doing this? I know like in our painting community, I've reached out to some of my favorite artists, be like, hey, I love your techniques. Is it pretty open?
Everybody's not open. Some of them definitely are. I'm usually pretty open myself. I have people come up to me all the time asking me questions or wanting to kind of see how I do things, even wanting to plug into the dome. I've got a few people this weekend that we're going to try to get plugged in and let them mess around with the visuals on the dome. There's nothing going to hurt like trying to reach out. Sometimes though, like maybe they're just busy or something, won't get back to you, but like definitely reach out to people that are doing cool stuff that you like and try to, connect with them. Maybe they'll share some knowledge with you or give you a crucial piece of vocabulary that you need to be able to continue researching what you're trying to do, or just hang around and make friends.
How about you guys? Does anybody have a question for Ralph that you'd like him to answer? We're happy to open up the floor and hear from you guys. Do you paint and then projection map onto a painting?
I'm not really much of a painter myself. I have done a little bit of like drawing on the computer with a tablet, and I play around in paint stuff, but I don't really I've never done a painting. I've never done a huge one. I've never did one and projection mapped it either. I do a lot of projection mapping other people's paintings, murals and different events.
So what's like a respectful way to approach an artist that you want to utilize their work for projection mapping? How do you approach getting art for your craft?
Pretty much just straight up ask, send them a message, or prefer to like find them at a festival, meet them in person. Like, hey, my name's Ralph. I do projection mapping on the dome. I was wondering if I used some of your painting or took a picture or whatever, or mind if I shared your work, and I'll attribute that to you and let people know that it's a collaboration.
So the question is, other than Blender, what other software are you using to create your content?
Do a lot of like image manipulation. So I use GIMP for that, which is an open source equivalent of Photoshop. I tend to use a lot of open source programs versus paid ones. There's definitely some paid ones. I use Resolume, NestMap. I think most of the animations I do in Blender. Sometimes I do get like some kind of stock video footage and edit that into what I need, or put effects on it. Or sometimes I'll even just like play a movie in VLC and send the video stream into Resolume to mess around with it. I use Inkscape for my vector image work. I use DaVinci Resolve for editing footage, a lot of color levels or effects. Go like find 3D models to pop into Blender a lot, or I use Unity as well. I've created like some video content in Unity, some little loops and stuff, and then I've also made that video game I mentioned earlier in Unity. I think that about covers everything I use to create stuff that I end up putting on the dome.
Very cool, thank you. For anyone wanting to tap into this industry, whether it be live at festivals or just more of a creative path, what's one piece of advice you would give anyone wanting to follow in your footsteps?
Just create something, like come up with an idea and then make it happen. Go through all the steps of it though. Like you've got your idea, figure out all the things you need to be able to do it, and get together a budget, or start just collecting all the things you need and start researching all the things you need to learn to be able to put it together. But really, you've just got to have a cool idea and start throwing it together and then finish it and bring it somewhere.
So creating, that's the number one piece of advice, is start there, and then maybe those professional opportunities come, or the chance to grow in your craft that gives you that next spark of inspiration of how to find your own voice. So I really appreciate your time today, Ralph, and for those of you guys that came out to support the Deliberate Creation Station. Ralph, tell us more about your space. You're going to open the floor for some workshops in your zone once the sun goes down, so you can see some of the things he talked about in action tonight. What time is that going to happen? What are you going to go over, and how can we encourage these guys to show up?
I've got this whole area over here by the main stage in the grass. There's 3 domes, like one's the jungle gym over there and then the projection dome, and I've got a hammock dome over to the left and some shadow lamps and this hologram screen. That's all my area over there. And yeah, in the projection dome, pretty much like in between when they're playing on the main stage, like in the gaps, and then after it shuts down, I'll be open to, like, you know, if people want to come by and learn stuff, I'll set up some stuff, show you how to do some animation, or like just come up, talk to me. We can play around with some stuff. I'll have some guest artists in there gonna hook up into the visuals. I think some too. Come in and hang out, come ask some questions.
Awesome. Thank you for wanting to share in that way. Like I said, it's so important to have these discussions and to keep creating that space for learning and sharing. And again, you guys are such a big part of that by being willing to show up and have that presence and giving us a reason to come out and do this. So thank you so much. I look forward to producing an official online course with Ralph where we can dive in and have some more access to technology to really illustrate some of these ideas. So stay tuned for what that looks like in future programming. Thank you, Ralph, for so many years in an industry creating, like, look how many domes you have here. Super impressive, and we're grateful for all of your hard work and just, again, giving back. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Art in Session is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide professional and educational opportunities to creatives. Thanks to support from our listeners, we are able to keep this mission going. If you are enjoying this podcast, please consider donating at www.artinsession.org.